So welcome back everyone. So today we're talking about flea, tick, and heartworm preventative. I get a lot of questions asking what I do and what I think on things, so we're going to go over some stuff about the conventional drugs that are used for preventatives and also natural methods. Now when it comes to deciding on conventional drugs or more natural methods, I think that really depends a lot on your environment and your lifestyle, like where you live in the country. Other countries, you know, they have different levels of mosquitoes and ticks and things, and there's tick season and things like that. That being said, I want to make one thing clear before I get into any specifics. I do see a lot of, I don't know, experts and other people and veterinarians online really pushing for just natural methods. I understand why, but I'm not for that. I am for both, because I don't think we can rule out completely the conventional drugs that we do use for preventatives and think that it's always going to be okay if we just do natural. There's some places in the world where, you know, mosquito count is extremely high and those preventatives are the best bet. Okay, so first let's talk about flea and tick preventative that you get at your vet office or even over the counter. So you're going to be getting your either topical treatments, oral treatments, or collars. So your topical treatments are going to be like things like Frontline, you know, Canine Advantix 2, brands like that. There's tons of brands out there, and obviously those are just the little tubes that you put on the skin, you know, in different spots on the dog. I personally use Canine Advantix 2. I've used it for years without any issue. And oral treatments that you can get from your vet is obviously a pill they take once per month, or I think even some brands do once every 3 months. I can't remember, so correct me if I'm wrong. With my original crew, I actually tried the oral drugs with them for about 2 months, and that was back when it first came out, like I'm talking like years ago. And I saw them experience an upset stomach and diarrhea, and you know, even at the time I wasn't very 100% on board with oral preventatives like that for flea and tick, because the idea of something to kill off flea and ticks going into the digestive system just really bothered me. So 2 months of trying it, I decided not to do it again, and I haven't since. And some brands for the oral treatment is actually like NexGard and Brevecto. And NexGard I've heard a couple of weird things about, not too many though, but Brevecto, I've been hearing a lot of dogs having seizures on that medication and having all kinds of issues happening from that specific medication. Now I haven't researched too much into it because again I don't do that with my dogs, but it might just be something to be aware of if you are doing oral flea and tick preventative, to maybe research Brevecto, because there just seems to be a lot of cases coming out with that. Now flea collars, I hate them. I absolutely hate them. I don't ever use them. I never have used them. When I was grooming dogs, it drove me absolutely insane. People coming in with their dogs claiming that their dogs had no fleas when I could see the fleas crawling all over the dog, because, you know, they don't have fleas because they're wearing that fancy collar. I hate them. They're powdery. They always smell really weird. I couldn't imagine. You're not supposed to keep that on your dog like 24/7 all year long, multiple years. I did have a client once, she had the same flea collar on her dog, and I swear the thing was on it for 3 years. I don't like them. I will never use a flea collar for my dog. I know other people do. You know, you do you, but it's not for me. And also, if you are using collars, Seresto collars, I'm sure you guys have heard of them. Seresto collars though, I've heard a lot of bad things about those collars. I've heard people having a lot of issues with seizures. Again, seizures and other problems with that brand. I don't know if there's any truth to it, but in my opinion, if there's a couple hundred dogs having problems with the product, there's something going on with the product. And also just a personal thing, anything Hearts brand, don't use. It's a big no from me. I've seen really bad reactions. I've had clients come in when they put topical treatments on their dog it was Hearts brand, and they would almost look like they'd have a burning thing, and I'd have to send them back like, I can't groom your dog, you need to go get the dog medical attention. But I'm not a fan of Hearts. I will never use that brand for anything ever. So just stuff to, you know, keep in mind or just do your own research on, but that's just how I feel about Hearts. And yes, vets will tell you to put flea and tick on your dogs year round. There is a reason for that. It's basically because so many people don't, and the dogs end up with some issues from it. There's reasons why the veterinary field says what they do. They're trying to make sure the pet is at its you know, utmost health, you know, and fleas and ticks can cause a lot of issues. Now that being said, do I keep my kids on flea and tick preventative all year round? No, I don't. My old vet, who I used to work with, she was totally fine with me just doing batches of flea and tick. I usually skip in the winter months. So, because in summer and spring, you know, we're out hiking, we're camping, I want that preventative on them. But during winter, I usually skip. And honestly, when I used to groom dogs at my house, I never almost used any flea and tick preventative, which is really bad on my part, but my dogs were getting groomed literally once a month or once every other month, and my shop got, you know, really sanitized, cleaned. I never had an issue with fleas, and I groomed in my house for over 6 years. And if you do have an infestation and you're using the conventional drug method, you definitely have to do 4 months worth of treatment. You can't do like 1 month and expect them to just all go away, because the fleas are going through a life cycle. So you have to make sure you kill that cycle. And usually the cycle's around like 3 months, but that 4th month you're getting almost like a guarantee. So it's like you have to go through 4 months of treatment to make sure that you've killed off the cycle. Anyway, on to some natural flea and tick stuff. So one thing I always tell people and always told my clients was, make sure you're brushing your dog. I mean, I know that doesn't sound like a natural way to prevent fleas and ticks, but keeping up with brushing and grooming definitely helps prevent things, because you're able to see it. So if you are seeing like flea and ticks, you know, you can remove them and things like that. So I always suggest to people to maybe invest into a flea comb. The flea comb's got very tiny teeth, and they're close together, so when you're brushing it through the fur, it actually is picking up any flea dander or any fleas that might be in there. And usually I check around the neck area, like where under their collar, and also on their back end, you know, close to their tail. That's usually the 2 spots that the fleas like to hang out the most. Now grant you, they can go all over your dog, but you get what I'm saying. Those are the 2 main hangout spots, because that's the hardest part for them to reach usually. Also, you can use the flea comb as well on your cat. The one caution I would say if you're checking your cat for fleas is definitely don't press too hard. Cat's skin is like paper. You can easily nick them. I've seen a person I worked with cut a cat open just by using a comb on the cat. So you have to like be really careful. Like, don't push really hard into the kitty as much as we want to. No, I'm just kidding. Another thing I recommend to people, which I don't recommend this as often, you can get a tick comb. I've never used a tick comb actually. I've always been pretty good about finding the ticks on my own just by, you know, petting my dog and like searching through their skin. But one thing I would recommend for sure over a tick comb is definitely a tick remover. So the tick remover has got little tweezers on one end for you to try to pull out the tick, and the other end is kind of got like this like scoopy method. So basically it's to catch the head so you can pull the tick out. And it might not be a bad idea to save the ticks like in a Ziploc baggie, throw them in the freezer just in case your dog would develop like some sort of signs of Lyme disease. They can at least test the tick that way. I will admit that I have never saved any of my ticks. I have killed them either in alcohol or suffocated them in those bags and just got rid of them. You know, and some things that you can do for like natural remedies is like you can do a half a teaspoon of local honey. I think it's half a teaspoon. Maybe it's a 1/4 of a teaspoon. I don't know because I don't do this, but I know if you get local honey, sometimes you can put that in your dog's meal every day. That's supposed to help prevent fleas and ticks. Another natural method is to create your own spray. So there's tons of different recipes online using like apple cider vinegar. They throw in like neem oil and coconut oil, and they will spray the coat of your dog. I have never actually tried this. And the main reason I haven't tried it is because if I'm spraying coconut, neem, and apple cider vinegar all over my dogs, they're gonna lick each other. So like, they already go after the coconut oil sometimes when I'm cooking for them, let alone like having it actually on their fur. That, I'm not sure I want them rubbing it around on my furniture. They already put enough stuff on there as it is. So it's not for me, but there, you can always look up recipes, like natural recipes online for, apple cider vinegar seems to be like the biggest one I see in most of these like tinctures that people make. And there's tons of essential oils that people have added to their little mixtures. So you just gotta do your research. Make sure that whatever essential oil or whatever thing you're putting into a spray, that you research it. And also after you do spray the dog, you definitely want to give it time to dry, because again, it'll go on your furniture. So, another thing that people use is diatomaceous earth. Oh my god, I swear I can talk. Like, I see a lot of people use that in their yard where they sprinkle it through their yard, or I know a lot of, chicken mamas out there seem to use it around their chicken coops too to, kill off parasites and things like that. I actually haven't tried Diatomaceous or Diatomaceous, did I say it right? Earth yet, but it's something I'm thinking about adding to my yard because we do have a lot of bugs, and with the feral cat colonies around my house, the fleas are definitely more of an issue now than they used to be on my property. And probably my #1 best natural method for fleas and tick: clean your house and pay attention. Vacuum as much as possible. Clean stuff, like turn on the radio and just, have a blast cleaning up your house. And not that my house is perfectly clean all the time, but vacuuming is definitely something I do a lot of. I know, people used to recommend putting like soaked alcohol, cotton balls inside your vacuum cleaner. I never really saw a difference of doing that, but just keeping up with the vacuuming and things like that, because, fleas can live in the little cracks in your floorboards that you have no idea. So just, yeah, clean as much as possible. Cleaning and keeping up with grooming your puppy. Those are like my 2 main things of. And when you are grooming your dog, if you do notice you are having an infestation starting, you can use Dawn dish soap. It will suffocate those little buggers, the fleas. But I can't say when I worked for another groomer, there was a dog that was so infested that the fleas looked like they were dead. And we did 3 rounds of Dawn dish soap, and those little buggers came back to life and were jumping all over me. That was one of the worst days working it. But when Dawn isn't enough, I usually recommend using Adam's shampoo. You can find it at your local grocery store. That is a very strong chemically smelling shampoo. When you're using that shampoo, you actually have to leave it on the dog for a while, so you have to suffer and smell that chemical smell on them, but it's a good start if your infestation is that bad. And they also have a spray too that works really well, where you just spray it around your house in the corners and things like that. But Adam's would be something I recommend if Dawn does not help you. Whether you're using Dawn or Adam's shampoo or whatever, it's always best to work from back to front. So at least that's the way I was trained. That's the way we've always done it, because once you start putting water and any kind of shampoo on your dog that's infested, all those little fleas are going to be traveling up to their face. So if you're going to be using Adam's, definitely start from the back end and stop around like the neckline. You don't want to put Adam's on their face because that stuff will like burn their eye. Like, yeah, just look at this as you're like cut off. Did you just fart while I was talking? Probably. So you'll probably see a bunch of fleas going on their face, but at least they're up there and you can pick them off, and the dogs can, scratch at their face if there's still any left over. Okay, heartworm preventative. So how do dogs get heartworm? Mosquitoes. So again, this is, like I was saying earlier, environment plays a part in your heartworm preventative. I know there's some areas in our country where dogs aren't on the preventative at all because there's no high risk of getting it. But like places further down south where the skeeters are like in really high population, that would be a place where you would probably want to keep your dog on preventative for heartworm every month. Now, some heartworm preventative that's out there now on the market will definitely help kill fleas and ticks as well. Again, I don't use those. Some of the brands out there are like HeartGuard, Interceptor, Revolution. There's even injectables. I think it's, what is it, ProHeart? Is ProHeart injectables? I think it's ProHeart, which I've actually heard a lot of bad things about the injection versions. The 2 I would always recommend to people is still HeartGuard and Interceptor, because those 2 brands, if this is still true, which I think it still is, those 2 brands don't seem to add extra stuff that the dogs necessarily don't need as much as other brands. And we actually use Interceptor Plus, because I know a lot of people ask what I use. But if you're living in an area that has a very high population of mosquitoes, you definitely probably want to keep your dog on heartworm medicine every month. That's just my personal opinion. Now, obviously up where I live, I kind of do it the way I do my flea and tick medicine. I will keep my dogs on heartworm preventative every month, except for the winter months, unless I can afford it. If I can afford it, they get it every month throughout the year. If I need to take a break, I'm always going to make sure that I take a break during the winter months when the mosquitoes are, not around as much. But that's just what I do. My vet has approved this. My old vet has approved this. Now, there is apparently herbal remedies out there that you can give your dog to prevent heartworm. I've never tried any of them. I don't know enough about any of them to give you any advice. you know, as always, talk to your veterinarian, come up with a plan of what would work best for you and your dog. Like I said, I think there's room for both, and I don't think that you should have hate towards one or the other, because there's a reason we have conventional drugs. There's a reason we can still do natural stuff. You can do both. You can do both. But anyway, if you like this video, please remember to click like and subscribe. If you have any other ideas, suggestions on natural remedies or anything else, or your experiences with any of these preventatives, please leave a comment down below, and we will see you guys in the next one. Take care, everyone. Bye. Man, this house is so loud. You hear all those birds? Do you hear all those birds? I'm not sure who's louder. Either you or the birds. I think you're louder sometimes. What do you think? Oh, yeah. Do you want to talk to Mommy about the birds? Should we have a conversation? Do you want to talk? Yeah? What do you think of the birds? Really? Yeah, they annoy me too. I think their screeches are worse than yours. What do you think? He's thinking about it. You're processing. What do you think? Do you think you're loud?